Hi everybody. Today I'm here to show you how we achieve some cool graphics in the last show of Mr. Chardish, and exactly how we using VR to make art in non-VR games. So first, I show you how it looks to be not to be boring. How looks that kind of graphics. And generally, who I am. I'm on game industry since 6 years. I started working on Get Even as a 3D artist. After that, I was an animator, and I established our company with friends, Punk Notion. Then I do the weekends, and the last show, Mr. Chardish, will I talk about it today. And I worked there on also designer. So, what is the plan for that talk today? Firstly, I show you what the hell is that 3D painting on VR. And why we used Quill. Quill is the software, one of the few, which can use to make that kind of graphics. After that, I will show you something about Artstyle and lighting, what we achieve that effect, what we have. Later, I will talk a little bit about asset optimization, because that 3D painting assets made in VR has a lot of triangles, a lot of geometry, and they need to be much more optimized to be useful in games. And in the end, I summarize that telling you something about pros and cons using of that technology. Okay. So what was the first? Why we decide to do something like that? Why we don't do normal kind of graphics? So in 2018, we're looking for some art style to our game, and we trying to find out that kind of art style which would be pretty and also cheap to make, because we started as a really small in the studio, and we're looking for how to keep all of both that thing. So we find on some Facebook groups that kind of graphics, what you see right now, and we thought that it looks cool, but what the most influence of us, that was description below of that the graphics, that each of that graphics, the scenes was made in half an hour, and for us it was wow. It's really quick for that kind of graphic. It's 3D, and we can use that technology in game, and even if we made it in one work day, it's still be awesome. So we borrow the VR headset from our friends, and we starting testing it, and we can consider it how it just working, that 3D painting in VR, what can be. I think that the easiest way to explain what is it is think that it's just like a normal painting in Photoshop, for example, but with one additional dimension. And it's just working like that. You just hold that that VR controller like a brush, and you brush all strokes in the space, and it's just work, is it? There is more than one tool to make that kind of graphics. That is two leading softwares. One of them, what I mentioned before, is a Quill. It's from Oculus. It's from Facebook. And second one, it's a tilt brush by Google. Okay, so next. What is the main differences between the two? Because we when we decide to we want to use that kind of graphic, and we have to decide which tool we use to our game. First of all, there's different viewport. In Quill, you are like in the infinite space. And you can rotate and manipulate of that object what you just create in both axes and size and etc. etc. But in tilt brush, it's quite different, because there is more like you are into the scene and you see the horizon, and you can go around that mesh, and so it's feel more intuitive, but also it can be less comfortable than how it works in Quill. What's different? Different kind of brushes and lighting. Okay, now it's a little bit disclaimer, because that's a comparison when we made 2 years ago, more than two years ago, and for the time, both of that softwares are upgrading. So they have some more different brushes and different functions. But then we have in Quill unlit scene with unlit brushes. There wasn't any light, all of that stuff what you made there, it looks really painfully. In the other hand, in tilt brush, there was much more different kinds of brushes. One of them there was reacting on the light. There was directional light inside of the viewport in tilt brush. There was also unlit brushes like in Quill, and there was brushes looking like stars or just lights, just like visual effects. Yeah. So that was also the differences. Next one. In Quill, the interface and amount of tools what you can use in making the meshes were there was more tools. There was more complex interface, like in Photoshop. It was quite similar, yeah. But as I mentioned before, with additional dimension. In tilt brush, there was like in the viewport case, there was more intuitive, and you can easier find how to make some mesh on the beginning, but there was also the less functionality. Of course, we can't use all of that Quill tools, because, for example, there was a erase tool, but it didn't work like delete some additional verticals or triangles or something like that. No, it was just hiding it, putting the alpha on that. So we quickly find out that we can use that because it's really not optimized. Okay, so next, different kind of strokes. That was the difference in Quill and in the teal brush, because in Quill there was pure flat colors, because on that on both of that softwares, just on the technology, the colors are saved in the vertex. It's just the vertex color. But so in Quill there was only that flat colors. But in teal brush there was additional textures on every strokes, every kind of brushes, imitating the brush trace, and it was connected to that lighting, because that light in teal brush make feel that it's the strokes in real life. It's like a painting. So that brush traces just with the normals on it, just adding that additional feeling of that. Okay, so but you see that both of them has some pros and cons. But why we decide in the end to Quill? So we decide that we can manage to have less intuitive tool if we can have more powerful tools with more options, and especially optimized option, but I will talk about it later. And there was more prosaic case, but also very important. That was better quality of exported meshes, because when we export meshes from Quill, it looks pretty clear, pretty correct, and it'd be almost ready to just export it to the Unreal. In the other hand, when we export meshes from Tilt Brush, there was some problem with that, because there was a lot of separate faces, and it was hard to just fix it by automatical tools. There was also some double-faced faces, double-faced, some flipped normals, and the meshes require a lot of effort to be a correct meshes and be able to put it into the Unreal. So that was the two main reasons why we choose Quill, but there was also two additionally. We're looking for the community around both of that softwares, and we saw that around the Quill there is more active community. There more things happen there, and we predict that that software should be being more updated, more living in the future. And finally, when I check it now, after 2.5 years, both of that software are still updating, but Quill is really updating more frequently. And in the end, on the beginning, we made the decision to don't use lights in the game, and in the Quill supported it. But it wasn't a good decision, because why we decided not use the lights? Because we thought that okay, when we don't use a light, we can just put more details into the scene, because the lights are very performance cost. So we try to achieve a good quality of picture of levels without the lights. But there was a problem because that is works on the really small scenes, like I showed you. That was our inspiration, but it's not working as good in the whole level when you have to run into it, make some puzzles, and do every different stuff, and reuse a lot of meshes, because that is how we made the games. And we saw that we have put a lot of effort to just brush and recolorize something on the level if we don't want to use the lights. And one day we think that maybe we try to put the lights on the level, and we find out that yeah, it's awesome now. It's started looking really cool, and we decide, okay, we have to manage with that. So how we can keep that art style looking more painfully, and have that lighting, what can achieve, what help achieve us better visual effects. So we decide to make material with this parameter, with slider, how much emissive effect we want to have it in that particular material. So on that screen, you can see on the top that screen with full unlit material, and in the bottom full material without unlit, just reacting on the light. And in the most of the cases, we try to keep that balance in the middle, like you can see on the screen in the middle. But we change it between the levels, because, for example, in the Illustrator of Mr. Chardish, we have different kind of gameplays in different levels. In one level, we have the gameplay mechanics using the lights. So in that level, the level of using emissive is different to be focused more on the lights. But yeah, that was our way to keep that painful effect and keep that lighting. Okay, next. I talk too much, maybe. Okay, art style and lighting. Okay, I saw about emissive material, light map, and static lighting. Yeah. So when we decide to use the lighting, we have to decide also if we want to use a static lighting or dynamic lighting. So we try to unwrap UV to the light maps, and we saw that yeah, it can be hard, because that kind of meshes it's construct with a lot of separate strokes, and it's impossible to connect it, because it was just separate strokes on that mesh, and it was built of that mesh. And we saw that even in the simple mesh, we need to have a real big light map resolution to keep some good effects of that lighting, but still it wasn't looks really good, and we quickly decide to just move to the dynamic lighting. Okay. Okay. So if we know that we had to use dynamic lighting, we try to figure out how many lights we can use on the scene, because we know that dynamic lighting is costs more in performance. So in most of the levels, we just use directional light. Even in some levels, like that one, what you see on the screen, we decide to just turn off the cast shadows here, because it's also some optimized case, and it still can looks good because of that our kind of stylized assets. Another thing, here we don't also on that picture also we don't use shadows, but what is more interesting, because of the reason what I mentioned before, that that kind of graphics, that 3D paintings doesn't use the textures, it allows us to put more triangles to the scenes, because we don't have use a lot of memory to put the textures there and render it and etc. etc. And that amount of times how more we can put triangle, what do you see in the screen, is strongly approximately, because it's really complex case. But one day we just find out that in comparison to our previous game, to Weakless, in the same platform, we can achieve the same performance, having 3 times more triangles in the scene. So it can help us to just sometimes put more detail, more geometrical assets in the game. Okay. Another example, that this is still at the level what we don't use cast shadows on directional, but just on some particular places we just put single spotlight and mark cast shadows only on few things. Okay, later I talk about almost no textures. Break the straight line. Okay, it can be sounds really obvious, because it's obvious that it's not looking cool, that just straight line, but it was quite different. It was difference in VR, because the graphic artist who just wear that VR headset and try to paint some stuff, some mesh inside of it, and that kind, for example, that kind of mesh that was like here, which demands some straight lines. It was really easy and tempting to just use a straight tool, straight brush to just keep that proper form, that correct shape in this VR, because when you just painted it in 3D, and you have to keep that shape and keep focus to don't make a really not the proper shape of that assets. So after we realized that, we just decide to make only with that strength brushes and just the scratch of mesh, and after that just put some more freestyle strokes of brushes on that. And we also need to some redesign some meshes to use that our technology because in that case, what you see on the right, it looks like totally low poly mesh, but it's not low poly because of that we haven't the textures. All of that colors and details, it needed to be additional geometry. So it looks like low poly, but it wasn't low poly performance, and it doesn't compile, and we have to repaint and redesign some meshes. And for example, in that case, with that tiny lines, you can see that our scratch would be after some iteration decide to do before we just start feel that mesh of color. And in the left, in the picture on the left, you can see just mesh after just brush it, because you can choose on particular brush only a color. You can choose a gradient, and after paint it, you can recolorize it to make on that asset feel more gradient. Okay, and that's the time for a pool. And this is a question for you. You can guess which one from that assets has more triangles, and I will answer on that after 1 minute, I think. So you can look at that for a while, and I start talking why this has a different amount of triangles. We use that reduction tool in Unreal, and it was really helpful for us. That was our main tool to optimize of that asset. Okay, I put the later next screen, because that optimized tool in Unreal, it wasn't enough. We also need to use optimized tool in Quill. It's worked differently. There was some different algorithms. So we need to use it in Quill, use it, and after export to the Unreal, use it again and Unreal tool to make the meshes more light. And also, I put the two pictures here to show you the similar scene, but with using different brushes. Because there was another thing what we have to find out, that some part of brushes works better with that optimized tool also in Quill and in Unreal, and some brushes works worse. So we had some situation that we use some worse brushes to achieve some effects, but after that we realized that now we have to repaint it because it's too heavy. It's too heavy scene for our platforms. Okay, and that is answer of that question. That two meshes looks completely similar in my opinion, but the difference of triangles in that geometry is crucial. Is many times, 7 times I think, and that was after 2 or 3 clicks in Unreal to make that reduction, and sometimes it's even can cut the amount of triangles by 20 times, but it not always work very well, because some kinds of assets just turn on the hedgehog like that, and it's happened with unknown reason for us. Sometimes it require just put it back into the Blender and change some geometry, put it again, and it start works correctly. So it sounds like a random bug for some cases for some meshes, and awesome. What we have to be careful on it. It was different amount of detail on the same mesh. In that case, this is a tree with some leaves, and the leaves are quite tinier. They're smaller than, and the brushes of that leaves are smaller than whole trunk of that mesh. So the automatic tool just thought that the leaves is not important because it's really small, and then they just cut it. So we also need to be aware of looking like that, because not always that just small things can disappear with the tools. Also, if it was just, for example, longer but really thin. Okay. So now is the time for summarize that. Okay. So what was the pros of using that painting in VR, using Quill, using that pipeline? It was really quick, because I'll show you. That kind of stuff, for example, the stage character with char and with a little bit surrounding, and put it after paint it, put it into the level. It can took 1 work day. In the other hand, also make some medium or small meshes, and also brush it, fix it, and put it in the engine. Can took 1 work day. So yeah, it was really helpful. Awesome. Props were easy to reuse, and as I mentioned before, that kind of meshes doesn't use textures. So if, for example, you want to change some scale of that level, you can do it easier if with that kind of assets, because with normal meshes, you can see the different density of pixels, different resolution of it, and it can looks not good. And it was also supported by Unreal because the level of details was loaded. It's not using the distance of the level, but it's use the percentage of the screen of that level. So if you rescale it, it still works correctly. Yeah, I talk about it that we almost now use the textures in memory, so it's cheaper on that surface. And that Artstyle, which was so painful and allowing to just some free strokes on somewhere, allow us to hide many imperfections. For example, somewhere in the background. What was cons of that technology? First of all, it was really hard to put some assets to outsource because almost nobody use that technology and know how to do it. And even if someone just paint for fun in VR, they just don't have idea how use it proper to use it into the game, because as I mentioned before, there was some process to make it properly, like choose a proper brush, etc., etc. And also it was hard to find experienced people, the same case. So if someone new comes to us to make that kind of graphics, we just have to allow them to learn all of that stuff and find out how it good can be in that kind of graphic. Another thing, that tools was an early stage of development. What was also problematic, I show you some cases. For example, on the beginning, we just start making meshes to the game, import them, put in the level, and just work on that. But we realized that, look, that mesh looks completely, maybe not completely, but it looks different than in Quill, which we try to set up. It was before we start using lighting, so it was still looks different, and we try to find out what happened, how we can set up it different, and we even try to make special material with multiply some kind of colors, and finally we find out that there was different color system in Quill and in Unreal, because in the Quill there was gamma system, in Unreal there was linear color system, and for example 1 year later in Quill the linear color system starts to be awesome, the linear. So now it's completely not a problem, but there was an early stage of the tools of the development, and it happened. And also there was some kind of geometry like alembic, and and we saw that on the beginning, and we think, yeah, it's cool. Alembic, it's that that waterfall, what you see right now. It's working like that, that you don't move the meshes like a particles or like skeletal mesh. It's just moving particular verticals verts in that mesh in timeline. So it started working in Quill. We started to like it, and we find out that in Unreal it's also working, but it is on experimental phase. So we made some tests of it, and it's looking working. We can make build and nothing bad happen. But one day, that was almost one day before we had to put the milestone. We make a build and it starts crashes, and whole level just disappear, just crash whole build. And we're trying to figure out how to fix it, how to make it working. After many hours, if not days, we finally find that there was needed to add 2 additional lines of code to be not crashing all that game. But later, there still can be problematic with when we change the number of version of Unreal. Some problems was solved in previous version happen again in next version, and yeah, if you don't use experimental tools in Unreal, don't do that. Okay. So on the next, problematic with skeletal and flat detailed meshes. Okay, maybe I started from that flat detailed meshes because it was a case it is strongly connected to that almost no textures in game, because when we want to achieve some detail, for example, like a poster or something like that. On the beginning, we try to just make it as a geometry on flat surface, but it took a lot of triangles, and it took more time than use it in normal softwares, like to normal softwares to make 2-dimension graphic. Yeah, so it wasn't good for that kind of versions, and skeletal was also not very well working with that asset, because in skeletal meshes you had some proper geometry what you need on mesh to keep that good working of that angles for arms, etc., etc. So in that meshes there was just separate strokes, and we try to make it looks cool, but still it was more problematic than we made it in normal way. Yeah, something what was make our work faster in static mesh. It makes our work slower in skeletal mesh. And last but not least, there was also case about health of people who just using that VR to make that assets, because I don't know how many from us using a VR longer, but it can be tiring. So, for example, our artists works like that. That they just put a little breaks every half an hour, or of using VR, or makes also not only that assets in VR, but also made some concept arts, or put that meshes on the level. So yeah, that was a case. Yeah, and I think that it's all. Thank that you want to hear me. And if you want to contact with me, you can send mail or ask something about Twitter on Twitter. Okay, and thanks. If you have a question, I can answer right now. Okay, I saw that question. What were the challenges of rigging and animating characters? Did you skin normally to the skeleton, or did you hand paint every with frame of the animation? Okay, we used that animation using just skeleton. We have one attention to make that looks of movement of character animation more like frame by frame, but we always using the skeleton for that, because we wanted to keep all of that movement blending and that kind of stuff. So we still just skin it to normal skeleton. So yeah, we don't paint every frame. We try to animate it classically.